Hi everyone, I'm going to answer your questions about the macro project. I will start with Anne, who wanted to know how I define disability, and I thought this was a good question. I didn't want to get too specific because I didn't want to leave people out. So I generally meant people who were able to get SSI and SSD. However, I know that these people don't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't work if they're qualified for SSI or SSD. So I went to the ADA and looked up their definition, which was disability is defined as a person with mental or physical impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. I saw that many different examples of people that were discriminated because of their disability, and these were very wide. There was a wide range. Like, there was one guy who had a letter that he received that said that, sorry, we do not hire people who are blind. And that was, him being blind was the factor that made him not get the job. And some people wouldn't even consider that, a disability. That's, everybody defines disability differently. And I guess in my case, it's, especially it's something that affects your major life activities such as employment, which is why I wanted to encourage businesses to start accommodating so that people don't have to choose to not work because they can't, people in society believe that they're incapable due to their disability. Other examples of people with disabilities that I came across were people who had autism and people who had significant mental health, like bipolar. It was very wide range, so I just wanted to keep it general because I didn't want to leave out any population. Joanne, your question was, why did I focus on the members of the Better Business Bureau? I wanted to start with a focus group, and so I chose the Better Business Bureau. The members of the Better Business Bureau have a mission, and that is an ethical marketplace where buyers and sellers trust each other. And one of their primary factors is integrity, which I think is important because this can apply to the buyers and the sellers, but it can also apply to the treatment of the employees. And if the employers are following this mission, then it can, help improve working conditions and, help eliminate discrimination of the employees. So I've thought that starting with this group would help my cause because of their strong ethical mission, and once they start changing their policies so that they can accommodate for people with disabilities, then we can further spread awareness in the community. The next question was Christina. How will people be educated and encouraged to either continue or begin applying again? This question forced me to think in a different way because I had only been thinking about what the businesses will do, and obviously there's still going to be challenges for people with disabilities. So I guess my biggest way of doing this was by educating businesses, which will hopefully also encourage people of the community to speak up about their experiences. I did a little bit of research and I looked it up, and they were talking a lot about other ways of discrimination in employment, such as, sexual orientation or being a mother and needing to breastfeed. And it always came back to support groups and reaching out in the community and spreading awareness. And I think one of the biggest ways that people can do this is by asking questions. Ask what it is about me, what is the reason that I can't be here and work here and do my best, and why am I not as qualified as that person? That's why I want to have these community meetings so that people can start talking. What is it, and what can't you do what can't I do that you can? And, what are businesses doing that are keeping people with disabilities from being able to do the best that they can? Jennifer's question was, if businesses start to hire these people, which many have already started to do, there's still an issue with limitations in upward mobility for people with disabilities. And how will my plan help eliminate this? I like to hope that if businesses are starting to accommodate for people with disabilities, that this will allow them to do the best that they can, which would, I said, even out the playing field, which is, obviously that's not 100% going to happen. But if these people are able to get hired and, businesses are able to make some changes so that they can do their jobs, then they can show what they're capable of despite their disability and further grow in employment. I guess, obviously this is still difficult, and the best thing to do is to start raising awareness and continue to keep asking those questions, like I said, with Christina. And actually, to answer Jen and Christina, I looked it up, and some studies suggested a self-advocacy movement for people with disabilities, and this spreads awareness and is empowering for these people, and the goal was for them, together with their supports, to work to transition themselves into employment and transition the thoughts of employers and the rest of society. Ryan, your question was, what is the difference between people who are starting, the increasing numbers of people with disabilities not working and then the people who never worked, and what types of people are more likely not to work in terms of what types of disabilities. And I couldn't find studies dividing up the disabilities. It was I don't know. I saw more different types of statistics, and a few of the things that I found were people with disabilities were more likely to be employed part-time than full-time, and were more likely to work in areas of work such as production, transportation, and material moving, rather than management, professional, and related occupations. And I also saw that 74% of people with disabilities were in private wage and were salary workers, versus 14% were in federal, state, and local government positions. So to also answer your question, they define, and this was the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics through the U.S. Department of Labor that did this survey, and unemployment was defined as people who were trying to work versus people who just weren't in the labor force at all. And the number of people who were not in the labor force, which means they were not trying to work, they weren't applying, they weren't, attempting to get a job, was 8 in 10 in people with disabilities. So the statistics that are talking about unemployment are the people that are trying, because they have to keep those different, because those are the people that are getting discriminated against versus the people who aren't trying at all. And it was interesting because the study said that a lot of the people who were not trying to apply and just weren't working stated that they did not want a job. Most of them stated that they didn't want a job at all. And half of the people who were not working, either whether they were unemployed or not in the labor force at all, reported that their disability was a major barrier to employment, and prevented them from being able to work due to their disability. So it's also, society as a whole, their thoughts on people with disabilities and their ability to work may be related to the large numbers of people who are not in the workforce at all and the large number of people who are unemployed. So this also goes back to the empowering piece, where if people start to show that, their disability isn't holding them back, then maybe more people will be more confident in trying to apply and work rather than, feel like they're held back forever because of their disability. And your second question was, have other communities done this? And I have not seen other communities do it, but I have seen a lot of awareness programs, such as Students for Disability Awareness was a group online, and there was the National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I saw a quote from President Obama that said in 2015 that he urges all Americans to embrace the talents and skills that individuals with disabilities bring to our workplaces and communities, and to promote the right to equal employment of opportunities for all people. So things like this are starting to create positive change in communities and in the workplace with regards to people with disabilities. So I hope I answered all your questions, and thanks for giving me a lot more to think about. Thanks.